Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and thank you for joining me this week. We will have a week view scheduler for you today. We will show you how to create and schedule appointments very easily. You can also have the ability to change the color of any appointments very quickly simply by changing a format in a specified cell, just like this, and then go ahead and refresh the screen. It's going to be a great training. I look forward to getting started with you. So thank you. All right, thank you so much for joining me today. We have a week view scheduler. As I said, we do have the ability to do previous week. This week, we can select a calendar and go to any specific date, or next week in this scheduling training. Now, if you remember, we did have an appointment scheduler before, and it was more of a month view, and we did this a few months back. We had the ability to schedule specific meetings on specific days and go to any month, as well as email and use multiple staff. However, in this training, it's going to be a little bit different. One, we do have a week view here, but in this particular training, we also have the ability to schedule a duration. We can then set any specific duration on this schedule from anywhere from as little as 15 minutes all the way on up to 8 hours. So this particular schedule is a lot more flexible in that manner as far as booking out specific blocks of time. And we do also have the ability to set a specific start date. So if your start date is on Monday, you can go ahead and set it to Monday, and the schedule will automatically refresh on Monday. And we also have the ability to set start times as well. So if our start time is at let's say 7 a.m., the schedule will go ahead and update and darken out. We do have the ability to schedule any appointments from 12 a.m. until 11:45 p.m. However, your window of time that is in white is based on the start and end times that you set here. So we have a start time and we have an end time. So let's go ahead and go back to 6 a.m. the way we had it. And we also have set end time of 7 p.m. So we have a lot of flexibility there as well in that. Oh, let me go ahead and set that correctly. Not 6 p.m. We want 6 a.m. We need more than 1 hour of working. At least I do. I don't know about you. So let's go ahead and set this to 6 a.m. Now, we also have the ability to select a specific day in a calendar, as well as change the color, as I mentioned before. So if we go ahead and set simply by changing the background of the filled color, we can also change all the appointment colors. So let's go ahead and go to this turquoise, and then we can just update the schedule. We can click on this week, and you'll also notice that automatically scrolls to the start time. So that is a feature. So automatically is going to scroll to 6 a.m., which is generally our start time. So that's really a helpful feature for the user. We can click on the button, open up a calendar, and select a specific week, or use the next week and previous week buttons to navigate any particular week. So it's a super powerful scheduler, and yet it's very simple to create. So I really wanted to show this to you. Let's zoom out a little bit so you can see the idea of it. You can increase or decrease column size based on your appointments. Let's go ahead and decrease it a little bit so you get more of a picture of the full screen. We can do this simply by highlighting the days in here. Right now we have it at 15. We can bring that to perhaps, let's say, a 12, so you can see more of the schedule. And then we'll go into column width here and make that, let's go 13. We'll reduce it just a little bit so we don't offset anything. Okay, great. And so what we've done is we've created multiple buttons, and let's go ahead and bring these buttons out a little bit. You can also group these as well if you like, so that they don't move. If you plan on moving your columns a lot back and forth, you may want to group all of these together, and that can be really helpful when spacing if you don't want to space them out of groups. So we will distribute them horizontally so they're nicely spread out. All right, so let's go ahead and go over the details and see how we went about creating this and how we went about doing this. Now, there's some similarities to the month view. If you remember that, the scheduler, we store our scheduling on a database, and the database is based on the year. And right now we have just 2018. However, I want this particular scheduler application, just like in the other one, I want to create as many years as necessary. So for example, if we select a date within a different year, right, I want to make sure that the database updates and does it automatically. So if we were to create a specific schedule, let's say we create an appointment, and you see now we automatically have 2019. That was not here a minute ago. So we've done that dynamically through VBA, and I'll show you how we did that as well. So regardless of the year that we select, if there's no particular schedule that's set on that, it will automatically create one. Here we have 2023. We select a specific date, and now you see year 2023 is there. So, and inside that, we've based our database on the dates. So here's how the functionality will work. Each particular database is made up of 2 particular cells for one date. I want to store 2 items. I want to store information about the duration, and I want to store the details. And that is it, just those 2 items. So we have 2 cells per date, and we've extended this all the way to the end, which is the last day. And we've left 1 for leap year. 1 for leap year. So I believe in 2020 is a leap year. So we've done this with a formula. It's going to basically, our formula says, if this date, December 31st, 2018, plus 1, right, here is the same year, right, is the same year as this. In other words, if these two, if this plus this are 1 is the same year, then it would be a leap year. So ABC. Let's go ahead and create a schedule for 2020 so I can show you. It's kind of important information, so let's go ahead and do that. I think 2020 is a leap year. Let's go ahead and pull that up. And okay, now we've created 2020, and here it is right here. We're going to go to the last particular, and you see 2020 is a leap year, and you see ABC, right? That is December 31st, but whereas on the other years, 2023, ABC here is blank. And remember, that has to do with the leap year. So what we've done is we've used a formula to add 1 more date in 2020. Otherwise, it's left blank. So here's the formula. If it says the year of ABA1 equals the year of ABA plus 1, if they're the same, in other words, if the year of this and the year of this are the same, if they're the same year, then go ahead and put the date in here. If they're not the same year, then blank. So if they're the same, this and this the same, then put ABA plus 1. Otherwise, leave it blank. So that's how that works. Every single database year are all identical except for the starting date, except for this. When we create them, we put in a different year here, right? A different year here. So that's how that's done. We'll go over with the code on how we did that actually, but I wanted to see you how that works as well. We've also used 2 different conditional formatting as well. Let's go ahead and close that. And we've used let's go ahead and click this week, and I wanted to show you 2 different types of conditional formatting on this, just 2. We have using just 2. We're using 1 for the current date. I want the current date. Today is April 29th, the day that I'm recording this of 2018, and I want the current day to show up in orange. That's 1 conditional formatting. The other one is said is that if our working times, or scheduled times are below this, under, right, earlier, I should say, earlier than our starting time, I want it to appear in gray. Likewise, if they are over our end time, if our end time, here's where we reset. Our start time is 6 a.m. Our end time is 7 p.m. So that means that any time before 6 a.m., I want to make sure it's in gray. any row that is 7 a.m. or over, I want to make sure that that is in gray as well. And take a notice here, 7 p.m. I should say, is actually grayed out. So in actuality, any time that equals 7 p.m. or over should be grayed out. Anytime under 6 a.m., not equal or under, anytime under 6 a.m. should also be grayed out. We do that with a formula. Let's go ahead and go into the conditional formatting, home, and conditional formatting, and manage rules. And we'll click on the entire sheet because I want you to see that we have just a few particular ones. Now these are ones for every particular day. Let's go ahead and click on just the worksheet again, and we can drill down. Now these are particular days. Let's go ahead and focus on this one. We need just one conditional format to take care of the non-work times. And let's go ahead and edit that rule. And all I've used is a simple OR rule. So again, start time, I've created a named range for that particular cell. For this particular cell is start time. And I've created a named range for the end time, and it's called end time. That way, no matter where you move these two, it'll always link up. So basically what we're saying is D6. Now D6 is our first row of times. D is the column, 6 here. That is our first time. And the important thing here, make sure there's no $sign before the 6. Okay, that's critical because we want this rule to apply to every single row in our range. So we want to make sure that there's no $sign. That's the critical rule here. And the same thing for end time. If either one of these conditions are true, then make it gray. Then we want to set the format. We can even do it, a darker gray if you want, right? And so we can apply that, and you'll see it turns a darker gray. So the idea is here that if D6 is less than the start time, make it gray. Or if D6 is greater or equal than the end time, then also make it gray. Okay? So that's why when I say greater or equal, that's why 7 p.m. is our end time. But it's also equal to, so that means that our last appointment we can schedule at 6:45 p.m. And that is set here. 6 a.m. has been set as the start time, and end time has been set, and the named range end time has been set for AD5. So we've got those two named ranges there. Now let's go ahead and go over that. So this is really simple. We have here, I've just set a named range of durations. We want to give the user the ability to set any duration from 15 minutes all the way up to 8 o'clock. 8 hours, 15 minutes up to 8 hours. So I've set a duration. Now it says 12:15 a.m. here, but in actuality, this is 15 minutes. And let's go ahead and see that. We've given this a format of time, but it's a custom format. In this sample here, I've used 1330, and this particular format, given the correct number, is actually 15 minutes. So if we were to change the format to this to a number, you would see what that number is. And let's go ahead and change that to accounting. That's actually 0.000046. So let's increase that decimal, right? So you can see how we've formatted how that number. Let's go ahead and click back on the cell. Here's the number, 0.001. So this is actually 15 minutes. And why is that? Because 1 is a full day. What about 1 hour? Well, 1 hour is 1 day divided by 24. So how do we arrive at this number? Well, we can use simple math for that. Okay, we know that day is 1, right? So what is 1 hour? Would be 1 divided by 24, right? 1 divided by 24. So if we do that math, we're going to get to that. Now, that's 0.0. Well, what about 15 minutes? Well, it would be 1/4 of this, correct? 1/4 of this divided into 4 again. That's how you get your 15 minutes. That is the 15 minutes. So we're going to place that right in there. And then we give it the time format, which is this right here, 1330 here. And that's how we get our 15 minutes. Then all we need to do is simply add 15 minutes, which we're actually going to be doing is adding this number to the 15 minutes. So we do that for each one, and we increase 15 minutes. So remember, the important thing with time is those are all decimals. Generally, time is a decimal less than 1. A full day is 1. 2 days is 2. So that in Excel is how Excel treats times. So we've named that range. So if you click on this, that named range is called duration. And we've used that named range in a data validation for here and for every particular cell that includes the duration. So under under data and data validation, you will see that that equals duration. And I've done that for all 7 days. And this is an open text field where you can write in anything you want. Now, let's go ahead and go over the conditional formatting for days. And this is quite simple. For each day is something separate. So when we go into conditional formatting, manage rules, all I've done is said here, if D4 equals today, D4 is the cell in the upper left corner of this date. If it's today, then we're going to format it. And I've done the same thing for each, and it applies to D4 through F5. So it applies to just these cells here. And I've repeated the same thing for every single day. So just the 2 conditional formats are very, very simple for this particular training. Now, I did not use conditional formats for the times because I wanted to make it super simple on the code. So the idea is when we select 30 minutes, I want 2 cells to fill in. When we select 45 minutes, I want 3 cells to fill in. Since they're 15-minute intervals, it's really quite simple. And then just the ability to type in any name you want, and then automatically that information is being saved. So when we go to previous week, the schedule is cleared. When we go to next week, automatically the information returns. And that's because we're saving it in the database. And it's not necessarily formatted very pretty, but it doesn't have to be. In fact, I would recommend not to, simply to save space and speed up the workbook. There is no reason. So when we go to April 29th under 218, let's go to April 29th, okay? 420. Here we go. So here's the information. You see it's not formatted, and we don't need it to be. We just need the data in there. That's all we really want. Often, most likely, if you were to send this, you would hide these sheets. There's no reason really to have these sheets visible, and most likely you'll want to hide them if you use these in applications for your coworkers, or you hand them out to your customers, or you're creating a larger application. They're really simply to hold the data and recall the data and save the data, but there's no reason to view it. So, and the reason is, now take a look at this. Now, you know that on the schedule, let's take, for example, Lisa Smith, 45 minutes. But if you look on the schedule, it's 3. It doesn't say 45 minutes. That's purposely. That's purposely. And the reason is because when I load that schedule, I want to know right away how many rows to color. I want to know how many rows to color. In this case, we're going to color 2 rows, 3 rows, and 7 rows in this case. So 3, 2, 3, 7, right? So I want to know easily, very quickly, how many rows should I recolor. So having these numbers here really help us. 3, 2, 3, 7. We know exactly. So when I'm pulling that data back in, I know exactly how many. Now, also, when I fill this schedule back up, I don't want to show 3, 2, 3 here, right? I don't want that. I want to show the actual times. But how do I quickly get those times in there and not show the numbers? Well, if you look closely at this in column A, right, and you go down 1, 2, 3, 3 is 145, right? 1 is 15 minutes, and then 7 is 145. So if I know, right, if I know I need to choose the first value or the second value, or in this case the third value, I can quickly pull this right into here because I know I've got 3, right? We have 3 from the database. We have 3. So how do we get 45? Well, it's relatively simple. We just know we need to go 3 down and get it. And I'll show you exactly how we did that in the code as well. So as well as the fill color, I'll show you how we did that, and the Sunday. And let's go ahead and do this. The last feature that I want to show you that's non-code is this feature here, where we can select the starting day. And in this case, we do that with a simple formula. And if you look here, what we're going to do is the starting day is AB4, right? The starting day is AB4. So what I've done here is we're going to say we need to find this starting day in our list of weekdays. Now we have our list of weekdays here, weekdays. We've set them right here. Right here's a list of weekdays. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to find Sunday. Sunday's the first, Monday's the second. So let's say we want the first day to be Monday. Let's go ahead and set that to Monday. All right. And we've refreshed the schedule. So now the first day shows Monday. So what we want to do is we want to match this. So we know that Monday is number 2. Right? We know that Monday is the second day. So when we match AB4, which is Monday, against the weekdays, our result here, our result for this formula is 2. So we want to go -1, 2 minus 1. The reason we want the 1 is I want to click on B4. So this is our starting day of the week. Our starting day of the week is always going to be Sunday, right? We want this to show Sunday. The reason is because we have to start at some point. So for example, when we click, now here's our Sundays in April. So if we click 23, our starting date is going to be, this always going to be the Sunday. So if we click another one, 16th, our starting day is going to change to 15th. And here's the reason. Basically, what it's going to say is going to take this start date, whatever day we select, and it's going to find the Sunday. This formula finds the Sunday. It's the weekday of B3 minus B3 minus the weekday plus 1. So all this formula does is find us the Sunday. So this is going to show whatever Sunday of the week. So now all we need to do is say, okay, if this is Sunday and we know that the user wants to start on Monday, it's going to be this plus 1. If the user wants to start on a Tuesday, it's going to be that Sunday plus 2, right? So that's Sunday. So if we're looking, we're going to match, they want to start on Tuesday. So AB4 equals Tuesday. This result, right, is going to be, right, Tuesday is our third day. Tuesday is our third day here. 1, 2, 3. So we know it's Tuesday and we're starting on a Sunday, so we need to add 2, Monday and Tuesday. So we need to add 2 to get to Tuesday. So we do that here. All we need is to do is B4, right? B4, which is here, plus how many days? Plus 2 days. So it's going to be the third day. The finding Tuesday is the third day in that list. Minus 1 is 2. So B4, Sunday plus 2. So that's how we get Tuesday. Right? You can study that formula a little bit more. It's not so complex. And then for the remaining days, all we do is just add 1, and add 1 to get the remaining days of the week. So that is how. Let's go ahead and go back to Sunday. And we'll select on this week so that we have the data we're done. And when we click, we'll go ahead and go over the macros. We've got 4 different macros that run each of these buttons. We've also got a refresh schedule. So let's go ahead and go into it. Into the VBA module we go. From your Developers tab, you can click on the Visual Basic. You can also click Alt F11. If you don't have the Visual Developers tab available, you can go into Options here, and you can select the Customize ribbon here and make sure the Developers tab is selected here. All right, let's go ahead. And first we're going to go over the on-sheet macros. And none of the other sheets contain any macros, just the schedule. The other sheets get deleted or added, and they don't contain any macros on the sheet itself. We do, however, have a few different macros that we run. We have a few that we do run on selection change, and we have a few that run on the worksheet change. Now the idea is, here's the idea. Let's go over some of the methodology. Now the idea is, it gets a little bit tricky. Let's say I want to change this to 15 minutes, right? I want to change this to 15 minutes. I need to make sure that first we clear out any and all of the colors that focused on that. So if we're at an hour and 15 minutes, we've got 5 rows that are colored. And if we change that to 15 minutes, we need to make sure that we've cleared out all of the other cells. Right? So how do we do that? Well, the first thing is, if we're going to make a change, I need to know what it was before. So for example, if we click on hour, I need to know that 4 rows are colored, currently colored. I need to know that. How do I know that? Well, what I want to do is I want to save this. As soon as I select, I want to save that information. 1 hour, I want to know. Because if I make a change, I need to know what the old value was. If I make a change to 15 minutes, I need to know, hey, there were 4 cells that were colored before. You need to clear those 4 out and color just 1. So we need to know. So what we want to do is we want to save this. As soon as we click it, I want to save that. And I've done that with this line of code right here. If you'll notice this line of code, selected duration, this is 15 minutes. And it's not necessarily important, you don't need to know the decimal. But so if we select on 245, this number is going to change. And the idea is we've used, so we need to know, remember, we need to know how many rows. I need to know how many rows are colored as soon as we select on something. To do that, we just use a simple formula. So on selection change within the code, what I'm saying is if there's, on selection change, all we need to do, if the user selects any one of these, E6 to E101, H6 to H101, K6 to K101, that is these columns right here, E6 right here, all right, H6 right here, K6. So these are all the duration columns, N and Q. So basically, if the user selects any one of those from row 6 to 101, anyway, then do something. And you want to make sure that the target value, if it's empty, you don't really need to do anything. So we want to do those conditions. 1, if has the user made a selection on one of those. 2, is the current value something? Does it contain a value? If it does, if both those conditions are met, then do something. And what are we going to do? All we're going to do is take the target value and put it into B5. That's all we're doing, is we're taking the value and putting it into B5. So that's all we're doing here. In fact, we could format this so it's a little bit more clear. It's not important, but so let's go ahead and format that as a time so you can actually see it. It won't change the value. It'll just make it clear to you what we selected. So now when you see it, now let's take a look. As I select it, it changes. Okay. So, but I don't need to know the times. I need to know the number of rows that we need to clear out. If the user makes a change, I need to know that 6 rows must be cleared out. I need to know that. It's important. So we know. So to do that, to get those 6 rows, I need to know it. So we've used a formula here, and all we've done is we're matching. We're using the match. We're saying basically what 45 appears 1, 2, 3, third in the list. So I need to know 3. So all we've used is a match. Match B5 in the range duration, and we need an exact match. If there's a match, tell us what row, tell us what number is found. So 45 would be 3, 15 minutes would be 1. So when we select 1, 15 minutes would be 1, and so on and so forth. So hour and 15 would be 5. So here we have that. So now we have this value. Now we know the number of rows. So should the user make a change, now we know, okay, we need to clear out 5 rows. So now we know. So if there's a change, we know the number of rows is right here in B6. And let's go into that so I can show you. When the user makes a change, they'll be using worksheet change right here. We use the if target count greater than 1. This helps us avoid bugs so that when large portions of cells are selected, no bug appears. If we don't have that, a bug probably will appear when we make a change, selection change or something. That's why we have it both on selection change and on worksheet change. So that's helpful in avoiding bugs. However, if you're using a merged cell, keep in mind that some things won't happen, right? So if you want to make a change and you want the code to do some action on a merged cell and you have this here, you may need to change this to 2 or 3 just in case. So let's go ahead and go down, and here we have if not intersection E6 through 101. So basically this is the entire schedule. E6 through 101 is our entire schedule. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. E6 is here, the first cell that a user can make a change, and to the last cell, which would be X101. That is the last cell that the user can make a change. So here I want to know if the user makes a change to any one of those, do something. So if they make a change and something else, we need another condition. B2 is false. What is B2? B2 tells us when the schedule is loading, right? When the schedule loads, all the data here will be put in. But I need to differentiate between when a user is putting in something, when a user makes an action, right? And when the schedule being refreshed. So we click this week, all the information is cleared and re-put in again. That's also a change. So we need to differentiate between those two types of changes. Those are both changes. One is automated by the Excel refreshing. The other is in user input. So we need to differentiate those two. So if you'll see here in B2, load week, right? This is the load. So I put a condition in. When we refresh this week, this goes to true. If you see, it's going to be really quick. You're not going to be able to see it. It's way too quick. But basically, this goes to true, and then it goes back to false again. So this allows us to differentiate between a user input and an automated Excel refresh. So what we do is we want to make sure, hey, this needs to be a user input, not a refresh. So you'll see in our schedule refresh macro, we'll go over this in a minute, we automatically set B2 to true. So we know that the schedule is going to be refreshing automatically, and we need to differentiate that. So in this macro, we put it to true. Back on the scheduling macros. So we need to get a few things. We need to get the sheet name of where we're going to be saving that. We need to get the sheet name. And what I do is, now keep in mind that, for example, let's go ahead to the beginning of the year, and so I can show you how it can differentiate on one single week. If we click January 1st of the beginning of the year, you'll see that Sunday, December 31st, is in a different year. So when we are going through these and adding information to the database, we very likely could have a different year in one day and then the next day. So we need to, theoretically, if we make a change to this day, we're going to be saving in the 2017 database, whereas we make a change on this day, we're going to be saving in the 2018 database. So that's really important to know, and so we need to be able to make sure we know which database we're going to. And I've done that through some notes all the way down here into row number 110. In row number 110, what I do is I'll pull the year from this particular date on both of these fields. I'll pull the year, and all I've done is using the year of D4, and I've done that the same for each. So each one is the year based on the date above. So this tells us exactly what database or sheet to save in. This particular formula tells us what column to save that in, and the column is simply using the match, indirect and match, and I'll go over that. So let's go ahead into January 1st. In January 1st, we know it's column 1, the first date. But let's say January 2nd, I want to save this in, I want to get that third column. So when we go into 2018, we want to save the information. When we save it under the second, I want to know that's column number 3. Column number 1, 2, 3. So I want to know, start saving this information under column number 3. So we need to, so what we're going to do is we're going to use the match, and we're going to find the date. All we need to do is find the date in this first row here. Find the date. So our formula is going to say, find me the date in this top row and tell me what column that date is. So this is what our formula does. Here, if we look at this formula, we're going to use the indirect to get the range. I need to know the range because I don't need to know. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, first, what is the sheet? And then the range. Now, the range is always going to be A1 through ABD1. So regardless of the sheet, the range is going to be the same. However, the sheet number will change based on the year. So we do that in this. So we do that through the indirect. So when we click on here, we'll see indirect K10. And we've surrounded this by quotations. The reason is K110, that's the year, 2018. If we don't add double quotations here and there, Excel indirect has problems because it's just a number. If your sheet name is text, it won't have this problem. But I've noticed with sheet names that are only numbers, you could technically, so this enforces Excel to see it as a text. So that's really important. And then we said here's the range, A1 through AB1. So all we're saying is this is the range. We need to find this range, and inside that range I want to run a match. Match is J4. I want to find this date in that range, and I want you to tell me what column, or what column that's in. So this simply returns the column. So January 3rd is column 5, 4th is column 7. So all that does is it help us. And all this is the column number. So I've just added, this is because we're going to run a loop a little bit later, so we want to run through all the columns. So that's just help it. It's not necessary. It's here to show you that we need to run from column number 5 to number 23 when we're filling in the data. So that is how we add to the database. So basically, when we make a change, it's going to say, take that 30 minutes, right? Take this information, put it in column, in this case, it'll be put it in column 3, right? And then put this in column 4. So that goes in column 3, and so when we click on 18, and we look at column 3, which is here, and we go down, and we will see that we've added it. Oh, here it is, and let's go ahead and pull that up. January 1st, 2018. Okay, so that's the first, sorry. So the first is right here. That's column 1. Column 3 will be here. So when we make a change to column 3, this is column 3, this is column 4, this is column 1 and 2. So Peter, okay. So here's your column 3 and 4 going back into the schedule. You see under column 3, column 4 is Peter. So that's all we're doing, is we're taking this information, we're storing it in the database based on the column number. And the row number, we're going to use the same row number. That makes it easy. So row number 31 here, and also row number 31 here. So the row number is not going to change. That makes it a lot easier. I just use the existing row number. Whatever row we're using here, we're going to use there. So it's pretty simple as far as the row. So we do that within the code as well. Let's go back into the VBA code where we can see more about that. And into the scheduling screen we go. So what I need to get the sheet name. And the sheet name is row 110, which you just saw, and the target column. And then the column, remember the column is below. What column are we going to put that information in? The database column is in row number 11 in the target column. Okay, so row 110 and row 111. Right here, row 110 is where our sheet name, our database name is, and row 111 is the column that we're going to be storing it in. Each column has a different number. You see, this is the last column in the sheet because it's the last year, 729. This is the first. So that's how we get the information in there. So we need to know both the sheet and the column number. That's very important. So we define those. And now we say, now we need to differentiate between if we're making a duration change or if we're making a change on the details. So I need to differentiate that because we're going to be doing different things. If it's a duration change, we need to clear any old colors and add new colors. If it's a details change, it's just a simple save to the database. So again, a few things going on here. If it's a duration change, if it's a change in this column here, we need to clear the old colors and add in the new colors, right? Clear the old. If it's a change to this column, then it's just simply saved to the database. There's nothing to do there. So we need to differentiate those. Now, how can we differentiate those? Well, each one of these has a different heading. In row 5, this one's called duration, and in this column is called details. So we can use that differentiation in the text titles there, in the headers, to differentiate between those two columns. So back into the VBA code, let's go ahead and take a look at how we've done that. So all I'm saying here in this if then statement, if cells row 5, remember that's the header row, and the target column equal duration, equal DUR, and the cell's target column value, right, that does not equal empty. And this means if there has to be a column. We want to make sure that there's a column number in row 111, because if it's empty, then we can't add it to anything. So as long as those two things apply, then do the following. First, we want to update the colors. But before updating the colors, we need to clear the old colors out. So we need to make a check. If B5, remember, B5 holds the number. B5 holds 2, right? When we select here. B5 holds 3 here, right? So as long as we're saying, excuse me, B6, if B5 holds the time, and B6 holds the number. So they're both very related. So either one of them, if either one of them are blank, then we don't want to do it. As long as there's a value, then we know how many colors to erase. So we're saying if B5 does not equal empty, let me change that to B6. Both will work though. Both will work. I want to make sure if there's an error, I don't want to continue. So I've added if error in B5, then go ahead and make sure that's blank. So we'll keep it at B6 because this way if there's an error, we will not continue. As long as it does not equal, then, right, then what? Then we want to, let's go ahead and get out of that cell. I don't want to be in there, okay? So I can highlight. Now, okay, so if B6 does not equal empty, then what do? Then the range of the cell. So now we're the range. This means more than one cell, right? More than one cell. And this is cell 1. This is the beginning of the range. And this is the upper left cell in the range, and this is the lower right cell in the range. Okay, so that is how we do that. So what I want to do is, here's what I want to say. Let's say we've got an hour and 15 minutes, and we're making a change. I want to know the upper left and the lower right, because I need to clear these colors out. And I know because of our formula, I know that it's going to be 5 rows. So I want to go from this cell to this cell, and I basically want to clear them out or make them white. In this case, we'll make them white. So I want to take all these cells and make them white before I recolor them. So for example, if I delete that, I want to make sure it's cleared all the way out. And if I add 15 minutes or add more, I want to make sure they're colored. So we do that through this line of code right here. And what we're saying is the target row, so we know, let's start at the target row and the target column. That means we're starting at the upper left corner. Whatever the row we change and whatever the column we change, that's the first. Now we want to make a change. Now all the way, I want to go all the way until the target row plus B6 value minus 1. So remember, B6 is the number of columns. So let's say we have 5 rows that we need to clear out, or we need to change the color to white. If we have 5 rows, then we go B6 is 5, minus 1 is 4. So we're going to say the target row plus 4. Target row plus 4 will get us the number of rows that we need to clear out. So that is the row. And what about the column? We want to go to the target column, which is the first column, plus 1. Target column plus 1. Here's our target column right here, plus 1. So we want to go 5 rows down and 1 column over. So that's how we get our full range. So now we know our range. Now what do we want to do? We want to take that range and I want to change it. This is white. 167721. That color is white. That will change our interior color of those cells to white. So that is how we do it. That's how we get the range. Now what we need to do is we need to recolor them. And so also we want to do is we want to set B5 to our new value. What is our new value? Right? So I want to make sure that we know how many. So let's say if we go to an hour and 50 minutes and we change it to 1 hour, our new value in B5 is 1. So I want to make B5 our new value. And then I also want to get our new number of rows. Our new number of rows is 4. Before it was 5, now it's 4. So I need that B6. I need to know how many rows to color now. So we have that here. So B5 equals the target value. This automatically calculates the number of rows in B6. So now we're going to make sure if the target value is not empty, make sure they actually put in a time. Then we need to get our new range. Our new range is the same as our old range because we've changed. B6 is now updated with the new number of rows. So it's the same. The only difference is we're going to change that color to whatever fill color is here. We need to get the fill color. So our named range, I've named a range. This column is called fill color. I've named that range so we can use that. So that means whatever color is in here, I need to get that color, and I need to change the color of it to anything in here. So that's the color we're going to use. So that just one line of code does it. So it says find the fill color here and use that. The interior color of your new range must equal the interior color of whatever this fill color range is. So when we change it, it changes easily. So when we change this color, and we can do that simply by, let's change it to yellow. And now when we add a new one, automatically it goes to yellow. Now once we click refresh the schedule, all of them will change, but so if we go previous week and next week, they'll all change to yellow. And that because it uses this same color each and every time. So it's really, really convenient. Let's go back to the blue we were at, something a little bit easier on the eyes. And once again, next week and back, and boom, it all changes back to blue. So when we run our schedule refresh, it also takes the color, the same fill color, interior color. So it pulls that. The last thing we want to do is basically add that time into the database. But in actuality, we don't want to add the time, right? I don't want to add the time. I just want to add the number of rows that are going to be affected. Or in other words, where that time flies on the list. So 4 would be 1 hour. 1 hour on our list is right here. Right here is the fourth one down. It starts at 23, 24, 25. So 1 is the fourth position. I want 4. I don't want the 1 hour. So we do that with the last line of code here. The sheets, the database sheet, we know the sheet, right? And again, we've surrounded that sheet in double quotes. That helps us when we use the sheet names that are only numbers. So that helps us push Excel to know that this is a text. And then we have the target row. We know the database column. We've defined that up here. We know what column we're going to be using. And so we know the sheet. We know we're going to use, remember, the same row in the database is the same row. That makes it easier. We don't need to change the row. Equals B6 value. Remember, B6 is the converted. It's automatically. We don't need the target value because B6 is automatically the number of rows. 30 minutes is 2 rows, right? 45 minutes is 3 rows. So we know B6 holds that number. That's what we want to put in our database. That's the number. So that is how we take care of it. Now, the next thing is details. If cell 5 in the target column, remember our header row, row 5, equals details, then we know they've made a change. And another thing, we also want to make sure, again, that we do have a column. We want to make sure that we have a column. This prevents errors in case it cannot find that column in the database. I'm going to make sure that that's not empty. And then what do we do here? All we're doing is saving it in the target row. And remember, the database column is the first column of the date. So we're going to be going into the next column, +1. And what that means is we want to, in our database, here's our column, right? Our column is, let's say, column 3. When we want to save the details, we want to save it in one column over, just the next column. So database column +1, we'll get it here. Database column is here. So that is how we get our target value, in this case target value, the name we put in, will show up in our database. And that's important because we need to recall that. We need to bring that back when we refresh it. Now, the last thing is if there's a change to a few things, I want to refresh the schedule. This is a macro schedule refresh, and we're going to go over that next. But basically, what I'm saying is if there's a change to B3 or AB4, please refresh the schedule. What's in B3 and AB4? Well, B3 is our starting date for the schedule. B3 is here, right? So if we make a change to that, now every time we go previous week, and every time we go next week, that there's a change to that cell. So anytime there's a change to that cell, we also, on this week, it also changes. And also when we select a specific day, it also changes. So anytime there's a change, refresh the schedule. So also, if there's a change to AB3, I also want to refresh the schedule. If we change this to Monday, then also refresh the schedule because I've got to refresh it. And if there's a change again, let's go back to Sunday, refresh the schedule. So those two items, I want the schedule refreshed. Let's go back to this week. Now we've gone over the on-sheet macros. So we've covered that. We've covered this. Now let's get into just the other modules here. And code reset is something you've seen before. This helps us move the application faster. All this does is disable events with stop code and re-enable events, calculations, and screen updating. And this helps us screen updating. I'm going to comment that out. It may not be so important. Sometimes can cause issues. So that's not so important, but the other two are much more important. And that helps us run the refresh much faster. So all of our macros reside on this module here, and we have, I think, 4 or 5. Schedule refresh is the biggest one. We have open calendar, and what this is going to do is it selects B3 where the date's going to change and open our calendar. We'll go over that in a little bit of detail. We have previous week. We don't need that. And we have this week, and we have next week. So we have those 3 very small macros that basically just run, and I'll go over those, but let's go over the big one first. And let's go, erase wrong, clear that out, there we go. I'll just get rid of these here. We don't need to refresh, because the reason we don't need to refresh is because anytime we make a change to B3, it automatically refreshes. So we've actually saved some lines of code there. That means the schedule's automatically refreshed every time we make a change to this. So that's why we don't need to run the macro schedule request. So we're saving lines of code right there. So we've got those 4 macros at the bottom. Let's go into schedule refresh. And let's go over the methodology first, and then we'll go over into the detail. Now the idea of this particular macro is basically I want to run through every single column. I want to run from column number 5 to column number 23. But I don't want to go through every single column. I want to go 5 to column 8 to column 11 to column 14. So I want to skip, right? So, but because I don't need to go through every single column, I can do this plus 1. So we're going to go 5 to 23, and we're going to step 3. Then when we're on each column, I want to run through every single row here and add data. I want to add data from here, from the schedule, into the schedule. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to run through all the way to 101. What if there's no data down here? It doesn't make sense for us to go all the way down if there's no data. Let's just go to the last row of data. And then once it's the last row, then let's go to the next before we pull it in. So we've done that. We only want to go to the last row of data. We don't want to go all the way to row 101 when there's no data in here. It's kind of a waste of time. So we're not going to go to all the way down to 101. We're only going to use the last row of data, and we're going to go through every row, every single row, and we're going to do that. And we can do it quite quickly, especially when we turn off calculations and turn off screen updating. So that is the methodology, and I want to pull all of the data in there. And then when I do that, I want to make sure that we update the colors as well. So we're going to do that. That's the schedule refresh. The first thing we want to do is we want to set our schedule refresh to true. And what this is going to do is going to stop anything. It's going to make sure that that this stuff doesn't run. When changes are made, we only run those when B2 is false, right? We only run these when B2 is false. So that means things in here won't run while we're updating, and we don't want to. These things in here only run when we manually make those updates. That is the reason why we set that condition. That's the reason why we set it to true. The first thing we want to do is we want to clear the colors and data of the existing schedule. We want to make sure that we clear out all this data, right? We want to delete that, we want to clear the data, and we want to clear the colors. So we want to do those two things, clear the data and clear the colors. So we can do that with just also 2 lines of code. We know the range is here. We're going to say with this range, and this range is the same range of this. We're not, of course, we're excluding the columns with times. We're just including both the duration and the detail. So I've covered that in that particular range here. We're going to clear any of the contents. Remember, we're going to clear the contents. We don't want to clear formatting. We don't want to clear anything. And then we're going to change the color to white. We're going to change the color to white on those. So just those two. So that clears out. And then what we're going to do is we want to calculate it. I want to make 100% sure that this formula gets calculated. These are very important, right? So I want to make sure that these formulas get calculated. So we're going to run the calculation. So that's an important part of that. When the dates change, right, we want to make sure that these formulas calculate so we can get the exact column numbers. That's also important for this. So now we're going to run our loops, and we have two loops. As we mentioned, we're going to go from column to column to column, and then row to row to row. So we have 4 week, 5 to 23, and you might remember those are the numbers at the bottom. And then we're also going to run a for next loop for the rows here. For schedule row equals 6 to the last row, and we'll define what that is. So again, the columns 5 to 23, step 3. We went over that just a bit ago. We're going to go through all those columns in the week, and we're going to step 3. So to do that, we're going to first start that loop, and the next is we need to pull the sheet. What is the sheet? It's row 110 and the week column. So row 110 is going to pull up, because different days can have different sheets. So going to pull it up, pull that sheet up, row 110, and whatever column we're on. So we're going to get that sheet name each time. It could be different if we're splitting a year and a week. So we get that and we store that here in this variable under database sheet, which is a string variable, which we've defined up here. I don't think we used that variable there. I'll remove that. So we have done that, and now we're going to say, now one thing is, what if it's empty? What if 111 is empty? That means there's an error. What if this is empty? If error empty. The only reason we're going to have an error is maybe this sheet doesn't exist. Right? Maybe this sheet doesn't exist. So if we change the dates to, let's say, 2025, well, actually it's gonna create the sheet automatically right now, no matter what, because let's close that out. I'll just change it here. It's much easier. If we change this date, if this is 20, let's say 2025, right? These are going to become blank. You see, because this formula is looking for this date, and it doesn't have. There is no year 25. There's no sheet 25, so it's going to be blank. That is why we run a test. If this is blank, that means we must create a new sheet that contains those dates. So that's the test we run first. So here it says if 111 equals empty, then we need to create a new sheet, and we can do that with just these lines of codes here. So it says if the calculated column is empty, that means the sheet in the year does not exist, so we must create it. And we do that here. We can use sheets add. This is going to add a new sheet in the workbook. And then it's going to say, well, what name do we want to call this? That's the database sheet. We have that. We know the year. So we're going to create a sheet name with that. The active sheet of our new sheet is going to have the name of the database, which is going to be, in that case, it was going to be 2025. And then what we're going to say is, okay, with the sheet 2018, let's go ahead and copy this. With that sheet, copy. So that means here, with this, what I want to do is I want to go up here and I want to basically just copy all of the dates. Now we're going to change the dates, but I want to take this entire row all the way from A1 all the way over to ABD, and I want to copy everything. I want to copy that. I'm going to put that in the new sheet. So we do that through code. So we're going to copy A1 through ABD. Then in the new sheet, which is here, paste everything. Paste it all. Okay. But even though now it's still got 2018, we still need to update the dates because it's still got the 2018. And we'll do that with the next line of code. So we're saying that new sheet, range A1, should equal, the first date should equal January 1st of, and then we're going to add the year right in here. So that updates all that to the year because everything is based on that formula. So for example, if we go into 2023 and all we do is make one change, right? Change the year to 2022, all the dates in there change. So that is helpful for us All we need to do is change that one date and they all change. So that is what we do here. Change that first date, everything else changes. Now we have a full database with accurate dates for that specific year. Next line of code is we're just going to exit out of the cut copy mode. And also, if you want to hide the sheets, you can use this line of code. This will hide the sheets, but I've left it commented out. We want to see the sheets. For training purposes, I want you to see those sheets. But you very well may want to hide those. In case you do, just uncomment that and then it'll automatically hide that sheet. So that'll be helpful. I want to send the user back to the scheduling screen in case it's not active. So sheet 1, it'll activate it. And then we're going to calculate. I want to make sure that we're calculating that new sheet and those formulas all calculate properly so we can get those column numbers. So we've gone ahead and calculated here. All right, so now we've got the new sheet. Now we can continue on because we have the sheet, we have the database, and now we can store the details that we've got. So we can now set the database column to the week column, to row 111 and the column. We can set that database column so we know what column in our database to store. And also now what I want to do is I want to know the last row. I want to go in here and I want to know the last row. For example, into the 2018 database, if our last, let's see, I think in this case, our last row is 7, right? Our last row is 13, excuse me. Our last row is 13 on the 5th, right? If we look into the 5th here, right, our last row is, let's see, that's the wrong week. Let's go ahead and pull that up. January, let's go ahead and pull up January. And we can see what our last row is, so you can get some idea of how we're calculating that. Now, January 1st, our last row, so we go to our last row, but in this case 31, January 2nd 2018, our last row is 31. So I don't want to go beyond that. I don't want to go beyond that. So that's going to help us out so that we don't need to go through every single row, just going to go through the last row in this case. In this case it's 31. So that's how we do. We need to get that last row, and we could do it in the code right here. The last row equals the sheets of our database, right? The database. The 102 is the most possible last row we can get. The 101 is actually the highest possible row. So we'll go one above that, and we're going to say database column 1. That would mean the details column. What is the last detail? So we want to get that last row. So once we have that last row, we can say, okay, now from 6 to the last row. But before we do that, what if there's no data? What if that last row is less than 6? Then we can just skip the column entirely. There's no need to go through every cell in the column if there's no data. So if that last row is less than 6, in this case, if that last row is less than 6, we don't need to go. For example, this row has no, if there's no data, let's just skip it entirely. So that's what we do. That helps us really speed up the code. So we do that with this line of code. Now we're going to run our loop from 6 to the last row, and we say the cells, the current cells of the scheduled row. Now we're going through the scheduled row plus the week column plus 1 equals the database sheet, the scheduled row, the row is always the same, and the database column plus 1. Basically what this does is it takes information here, right, on January 1st, Fred, and it puts it right in row 6, and it puts it right on our schedule right here. Puts it right here. So that is how we do that. And in this case, January 1st. So it'll put that right there. Let's go to this week where we have some data that is updated. All right. Now we have all this data, and so we can see that there's a good amount of data on this sheet. So we're going to basically run through adding the data from the database into that cell. Now we want to add, so we've added our appointment details with this line of code. Now we want to do two things. I want to add in the duration and I want to color it, and we can do that with this line of code. First, we want to make sure the duration is not empty, so we'll use this line of code. The schedule row in the database column is not empty. If it's not empty, we're going to set the duration to the database column. The duration, that's a long file, that's a whole number. And our duration is going to be that whole number is going to tell us how many rows to color. The duration in this case is 4, is 6, 4, 1. This tells us also how many rows to color. So our duration, we've set it up, we put it in this value here. Now I want to take that duration, I want to convert it to a time, and I want to put it in there. So I want to take that 4, I want to take this 4 under David Davis, I want to change it to 1 hour, and I want to put it right on January 1st. Let's go to the current week we have, which is currently April 29th right here. All right, here's our information. So for example, I want to take Lisa Smith. I want to take this 3 and I want to convert it to 45 minutes. I want to take this and I want to convert it here. So how do we do that? Well, we know 1, 2, 3 is 45 minutes. So A25 is 45, right? A25 is 45. We know we have A, so A22 plus the duration is this number. A22 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 45. So that's all we need to do. We know it's in column A, so that's exactly what we do in the code here. So cells 45, the week column, equals A and 22 plus the duration. If the duration's 3, we're going to be on A25. That's it. That's all we have to do is to convert the 3 to 45. So that sets the actual duration based on the list of durations. So now we have it. Now all we need to do is we need to color those. We need to color those 3 rows. We need to tell Excel, okay, I want you to color those 3 rows. I want you to start here and I want you to end right here and color this. And the color I want you to use is right here under fill color. So that's it. We can do that with just one line of code. Also, arrange, because we're starting with one cell and we're ending with a different cell, so it's going to be a range. Our starting cell is the schedule row plus the week column. That's the upper left. And our ending row is the lower right. Cells the schedule, the row, plus the duration minus 1. This will get us, this is 3, minus 1 is 2, so this is 2. 2 plus the schedule row is a total of 3 rows. And we're going to add 1, the column plus 1. So this tells us the range to color. This is the range. And now this tells us what color is the color of whatever color is here in the fill. We went over this before. That's the color we're going to give it. So that is how we color it. And then we just loop through that and we go to every single row. Now if there's no data in the row, it's going to skip, go to next column, and that's going to skip all those rows. So then we just go to the next column. And then we loop through that for every column. Now when the schedule refreshes, what I want to do is I want to also, as we said, I want to go right here at our first. I don't want it to end up here, and I don't want it to end up here. I want it to end up right at 6 a.m. 6 a.m. is our first starting row. So if we change that to 7 a.m. or to, let's say, change it to 5 a.m., I want to show 5 a.m. So I want to automatically scroll on the refresh to 5 a.m. based on that, because I want to go to that first time. So that is how we do that. And now it's 5 a.m. here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to see if it runs a little bit quicker. Let's go ahead and go into the code. It was a little bit slow on that full week. So let's go and I'm going to enable, I'm going to also stop screen updating. Let's see if it's a little bit faster there. So we may need that. Let's see if that helps at all, and click on this week again. Oh yeah, there we go, much faster. Okay, so we'll keep that up. So screen updating in this case does help us a lot, so we're going to keep that. That's important. You can see the time differences there. So the idea is I want to scroll to whatever the start time is. So how do we do that? Well, the start time is 5 a.m. in this case, and that's row 26. So we need to know row 26. That's important. How do we find row 26? Well, we know the start time is 5 o'clock. So let's go ahead and get that. We know that all we have to do is find. Now I've actually created a name range from here to the end, and we've called that times. That is our range, okay? Just the first column, column D, is times. So if we find 5 a.m., let's say we're looking for 5 a.m., and we use a match, right? Then we can use the match, and we know that start time would be 5 a.m., right? We know that it's 26, so we've done just that with this formula here. So we're going to match start time with the times, right? That's this column here. And we're going to add 5 onto that. Why do we add 5? Because our range starts at row 5, because it starts on row 6, so we must add 5. For example, if we didn't have that 5, it's going to return row 1. I don't want row 1. I want row 26. If the start time is 12, I want it to return 6. So that's why we add 5 onto this. So this tells us exactly what row we'll need to scroll to when we refresh it. So when we click this week, automatically it scrolls to row 26. And we did that with just one line of code. Let's go back. So that is located in B7. So that is what we want. So our code will tell us to do just that. It'll say active windows scroll to whatever is in value B7. So that's going to scroll to the row B7. So that's how we do that. The last line of code, all we do is refresh that schedule to false. Okay, so remember why that's important. And then we're going to reset the code. This reset code is also here. This is what stops our calculation, stop code, and resets the code, enabling events, disabling calculations. That's how we keep things working really fast. If we don't use that, it's going to run really, really slow. So we want to make sure that when we're running through all those columns and running through all those rows, that events are disabled, that calculations are manual, and that screen updating is false. When we finish it, we do absolutely have to make sure we reset the code, otherwise things are not going to work. So we want to make sure we do reset events, calculations, and updating on that. So that is why. Now the open calendar, all we do is we're going to select B3. And the reason we select it is because when we click on that calendar form here, right, click on that calendar form, our code is going to basically tell us to put the date in the active cell. It's going to put the date in the active cell value, right? So we want to make sure that before we launch that calendar, we click here. Okay, we click here, click here, B3, right? So if we're clicking here and we click the calendar, you see automatically B3 got selected. That way, when we put in a specific date, automatically it gets updated. So that's why we select that before. That is why the code, we select B3. That is our date. That's important. And then we're going to show the calendar. That's it. That's all we do. For previous week, all we do is take that same day in B3 and we subtract 7 from it. For the current week, all we do is we take the current day, which is located in B1. Our current day is located in B1 here. And we just add that and we make that. So when we click this week, it takes the current date and puts it right into the week start date. So that is how we do that. And as well, the next week, all we do is take B3, whatever is currently in there, and we add 7. Changing B3 automatically updates the schedule automatically. So all we need to do is make a change. For example, if we go into B3, double click and exit out, it's going to refresh the schedule just like that. So theoretically, we could also change this, and that itself would update the schedule as well. So that's how we do that. That is how we update the schedule there. Those are the macros that run this particular calendar. So it's a really, really important. I think we have gone over everything in here. I hope you do like this training video, a little bit longer than normal. And I hope you found it interesting. I would love to see how you customize this and make this use in your own applications, your own. As always, these videos are free. I love to make them for you and love for your feedback and comments. All I ask is that you do share this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you can, and you'll get automatic announcements if you click that icon. Thank you again so much, and have a great day.